So I'm going to tell you a story. When I was little, I was very, very lucky. Every Wednesday afternoon, my dad would come and pick up me, my brothers, my sister. He would collect us from school, he'd take us home and he'd teach us how to cook. It was amazing. I remember preparing vegetables, I remember shucking oysters, peeling prawns, cleaning mussels, frying steaks, reducing sauces, making stocks. We had a wonderful time, and the skills that he taught me during that period are skills that have stayed with me for life, and I love cooking and I do it all the time. But perhaps more than that, more importantly, the other thing that he taught us how to do was how to eat, how to sit and eat together and enjoy each other's company and talk to each other and just celebrate being together. And that's a wonderful thing. And it's something that actually humans have been doing forever. From the first time that humans started learning how to make their own fire, from the time that humans started hunting together, they have been sitting down, they have been eating together, they have been celebrating together, and they have been cooking together. And whilst the events and the cycles of history come and they go, the structures of human behaviour remain, right? And humans have always eaten together, and they will always eat together. And I know that right now, during this pandemic, you are maybe not getting the chance to speak to and see the people that you love and sit down and celebrate with them by sharing a meal. You will get to do that at some point again. It's not long in coming. Might be weeks, might be months, but it will happen again. And what I want to do is I want to pass on some of that love that my dad gave to me in terms of teaching me how to cook, and I want to show you some of the things that he taught me, so that hopefully when all of this is over and you're back being able to see your loved ones whenever you can, you might get to cook for them and give them some of the wonderful food that I'm hopefully going to teach you how to cook. Right, welcome everybody. So lesson number 1, we're going to learn about how to cook eggs. Now, I always find that the word egg is a slightly strange word. It sounds a bit like the onomatopoeic word for someone who's not certain of something, or the sound that a monster in a children's story might make. So it's not the best sounding word for a piece of food, but it is nonetheless an amazing ingredient. It's perhaps the most magical ingredient I think there is, because it does all kinds of crazy things. Helps cakes to rise. You can turn eggs combined with a couple of other ingredients into incredible sauces. You can put eggs into bread. You can do all kinds of wonderful things with eggs, basically. But at their most simple, just cooked on their own, they are a truly wonderful thing. So I'm going to show you how to cook eggs 3 separate ways. And for almost all of those, the only 4 ingredients you need are salt, butter, eggs, and bread. And that is it. And number 1, I'm going to teach you how to boil an egg. Just so you know, I've got this hot plate here which might make a little bit of noise. I would ordinarily cook on my stovetop behind me here, but you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. So I've got this hot plate and here I am. And what I'm doing is I am boiling water. So let's get started. The water has now come to the boil. And if I leave the temperature high here, it's just going to keep on boiling away furiously, and I don't want it to boil away furiously. I just want it to be simmering slightly. So I want to see a bit of movement in the water, but no more. So I'm going to turn this down slightly, and that will do. I'm going to get my clock ready. And this is something that's really important. Whenever you're cooking, you have to be prepared, right? You have to have everything in its right place so that you can just get on with what it is that you need to do. And I'm going to use a spoon to lower my eggs down into the water. Reason being, if I just drop them in, they might crack, and if they crack, you'll get loads of egg white just running out into the water, and I don't want that to happen. And I'm going to get both of them near to the water so I can put them in quickly. So there goes 1, there goes 2, and my timer starts. And now I've got 6 minutes. What am I going to do for 6 minutes? I'll tell you. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some bread and I'm going to toast it. And even that is going to leave me with quite a lot of time left to spare. Right, so there's 1 slice. I'm going to cut 1 slice per egg. And I'm literally just going to pop this in the toaster. Okay, so my alarm has just gone off and I am quickly going to remove these and put them straight into a sieve. Now what I'm going to do is, as quick as I can, I'm going to take them over to the sink and I'm going to run the cold tap, and I'm literally just going to leave the... I'm literally just going to leave cold water to hit them. What's happening is that the residual heat that's on the shell is continuing to cook the eggs, and I want that cooking process to stop, because if it keeps on cooking, then those eggs are going to be hard, and I don't want them to be hard. I want them to be soft. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I have my 2 pieces of toast, and very simply, I am going to butter them. I can leave that tap running with the cold water going on. I can leave that for a good 2 minutes, right? So I don't have to rush here. I can be quite laid back about it. I'm going to chop one of these into soldiers. Personally, I prefer peeling a boiled egg and just cutting it open onto a piece of bread, right, or onto a piece of toast. But, you know, it's up to you what you do. Express yourself. Right, that'll do. Okay, so I can feel that these two are now, they've now stopped cooking. And how do I know? Because they don't feel hot anymore, basically. That's a simple, the simplest test that we can do. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna serve these eggs in 2 different ways. Effectively, it's the same thing, but I can just make them look, very different by the way in which I serve them. So I'm gonna put this one in my little egg cup there. I'm gonna open that in a little while. And in the meantime, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna peel this egg. Now, once you've cooked an egg, what tends to happen is that normally at the top or at the bottom a little air pocket forms, and what I want to do if I'm going to peel this egg is I just want to bang my egg on my worktop until I find that air pocket, and I'll know I found the air pocket because what happens is it breaks quite easily here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm very carefully going to start peeling this, this egg. Now if you're really lucky when you're peeling an egg, you'll find this kind of membrane. And this membrane is just behind the shell. Membrane's like a little piece of skin. And if I can get my finger behind that membrane, I can peel that skin off quite easily, he says, and it should, see, there we go. It should come off relatively straightforward. And if it has worked, he says if, right, maybe it hasn't. If it's worked, what you should feel is that there is a little bit of give in this egg. You should feel that it's sort of slightly soft. And I am quite happy with that. Ooh, ooh. Bit of my whites come off the top. It's not the end of the world. So now what I'm going to do, this is how I like doing it, is I'm just going to slice this in half. Going to cut that. Oh yeah, there we go. Perfect. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, that looks great. And all I'm going to do to add to it is put a tiny little pinch of salt on top of there, and that is a treat for you or for someone you love. Right, okay, I'm also going to now chop open this and let us see whether this has worked as well. Okay, so to take this off here, I am just going to insert my spoon, and then what I'm going to do is I am just going to use my spoon just to uncover that yolk, and look at that, that's absolutely perfectly done. I'm just going to finish off by just doing this, just so you get that. I mean, that literally reminds me of being a little kid. Happy days. We've done boiled eggs. I'm now going to show you how to make scrambled eggs. And for scrambled eggs, I'm going to use a slightly different pan. Now you could use any pan that you want, really. I'm using a frying pan, but that's larger so that you can see what I'm doing. But you could quite easily use the same pan that I used moments ago, or any kind of saucepan. And what I've done straight away is I've put that pan with nothing in it, and I've put it on the heat. And I've put it at quite a relatively low heat, kind of a low to medium heat is what I have done. And I just want that pan to be left to heat up. Now when you're making scrambled eggs, I'm going to show you how to make scrambled eggs for 2 people. And when you're doing this, I would recommend that you get all your stuff ready, right? And I'm going to serve these scrambled eggs, same as last time, on toast. So the first thing I'm going to do, very simply, I'm going to chop a couple of slices of bread from this loaf. Now, this bread looks like I've, been out to a shop and bought some fancy loaf of bread. I've actually made this myself, and what I will do in a later video is I'll show you how to make your own, but any bread will do, right? A normal sliced loaf is perfectly fine. So, in there you go. Now, people cook scrambled eggs in all sorts of different ways. Lots of people like to whisk their eggs up first of all. Some people like to do it in the microwave. My mum used to do that. I mean, whatever floats your boat. I definitely wouldn't bother though. And certainly what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to whisk these eggs up, right? All I'm going to do is I'm going to take a relatively large knob of butter and I am going to stick it in that pan. I'm going to put a tiny bit more than that in actually. He says a tiny bit more. This is quite a decadent dish, right? It's not perhaps as healthy as just a plain boiled egg is. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to run that butter around my pan, and I'm just going to let it melt. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 eggs. If I'm feeding 2 people, 4 eggs is okay, right? If you're very hungry on your own, I'd probably have 3 eggs. But I think for 2 people, 4 eggs is absolutely fine. I'm going to turn this down because it's now starting to bubble a bit too much for my liking. And rather than whisking these eggs up, I'm literally going to crack them in here. Now, those of you that already do quite a lot of cooking might be thinking, why is Sir making fried eggs? Well, I'm not making fried eggs, I'm making scrambled eggs. I'm going to crack them all in, and when I'm doing this, I'm going to be really careful not to break any of the yolks, right? That's a really, really important thing. And straight away, as soon as I put those eggs in that pan, I've cooled the temperature down, and I can see that there's a little bit of activity in there, and I want these whites to catch, and I want them to start cooking slowly. And very simply, I am just going to start to move those egg whites around, yeah, very slowly. And what I am trying to do is I am just trying to cook the egg whites, right? And it's slowed down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it up a tiny bit, and then I'm going to keep on moving my egg whites and keep on moving them. Now, if I was to have whisked these eggs up, some people tend to put salt in the mix, whisking it. If you add salt to egg whites, it kind of turns them into water. And I don't want that, because actually when I'm making scrambled eggs, I really quite like the texture of eggs that have not been kind of liquefied with the salt. But I will add salt to this in a little while. Now, I'm very nearly there now, right? Those eggs have now virtually scrambled. So what I'm going to do, or the whites have anyway, is I'm just going to take it off the heat just for a moment, because I heard my toast go behind me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get 2 plates, and I'm going to butter that toast, right? And then I'm going to come back to this. So, almost there. Okay, here we go. So no huge rush. That's one. That's another. Okay. So they're now ready. I'm basically ready to serve. And I am going to put this pan back on here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to stir this around a lot more quickly. I'm going to break those yolks up. And what I've done is I have now kind of created a sauce out of my yolks. And the yolks basically are where all the flavor is in your eggs. I'm going to season it now, okay, because the seasoning will not have as much impact in terms of changing the constitution of the yolks as it does on the whites. And I'm going to keep on going until such time as I get it to the consistency that I want. Right, I'm going to move it, keep on moving it. And what I like about this is that you get that kind of contrast between the whites and the yolks, right? And I personally think that scrambled eggs should be sort of fairly sloppy. That sounds like a really horrible way to describe food, fairly sloppy. But nonetheless, that's the word I'm going to use, right? And I'm almost there, And that, I think, is that, but don't be scared of them being slightly soft. And that is 1, and that is 2, and there we go, finished. I said you only need 4 ingredients. Scrambled eggs don't look quite right as far as I'm concerned without a little bit of pepper. Et voila. Again, a treat for you and someone you love. Okay, so the final type of egg that I'm going to show you how to cook is an omelette. And an omelette is a very quick way of cooking eggs. You can tell that because I've got my plate here ready to serve it up. I've got a pan that's on the heat. It's already pretty hot. And all I need to do now is prepare my eggs very quickly. It's going to be a cheese omelette. So I lied at the beginning. I said 4 ingredients throughout. It's not 4 ingredients throughout because I've now got just a little pot of grated cheese ready to go. And I've got some pepper as well. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take 3 eggs. I'm going to crack them straight into here. There's 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to season these eggs ever so slightly. Only a tiny bit of salt because I'm putting cheese in the omelette, right? So and cheese has quite a lot of salt in it, and a little bit of pepper. And I'm going to whisk it up. Now those eggs are good to go. My pan, I can see it's really hot because it's now smoking. And this should take maybe 30 seconds. We'll see. Right, so there's some butter. It's melting already, and I want to spread it around my pan. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eggs, pour them in, and I want to move those eggs around just a little bit. Okay, that will do, I think. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that cheese, I'm going to sprinkle it in a line down the middle, and now I'm just going to sit and I'm going to wait. And what I'm waiting for is for most of the egg to be cooked. I still want it to be slightly runny on the top because when I fold it over and serve it up, it's going to continue to cook. There'll still be heat inside there. I've got a fish slice, and what I'm going to do with that fish slice is I'm just going to start to loosen the edges ever so slightly. There we go, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. And I'm just shaking the pan just to keep the omelette from sticking to the bottom of my frying pan. And we're very nearly there. I have to watch and I have to pay very careful attention. The cheese is now starting to melt. I can see that more and more of the egg is starting to cook. Now, I want to serve it so that it looks really nice and it's just folded over. Doesn't always work, but I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to put my fish slice under there. And can I get my hand under? Yeah, I can. I'm going to fold it over. Wonderful. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I have to move my plate slightly, and I'm just going to tip it out onto that plate. Come on. Et voila. Done. That's it. 3 eggs, no bread, none of that business needed. Just a 3-egg omelette with a bit of cheese in it. Wonderful. So in all of these lessons that I'm going to be teaching you, I'm going to be using salt. And salt is this magnificent ingredient that is perhaps, I would say, one of the most important ingredients in world cooking, never mind just cooking in this country. You know, the ancient Assyrians used to have a phrase that basically denoted friend, and its actual translation was the person who I share my salt with was the person who you were friends with. Roman soldiers used to be paid in salt. That's where we get the word salary from. The word sal is the Latin for salt, and today we think of people being paid a salary. Well, that word derives from the word for salt. So why is salt so important? Well, salt is a really important ingredient because it has the ability to come up with all these sorts of chemical reactions. It reacts with food. But one of the most important things it does is it extracts moisture from food. And if it extracts moisture from food, i.e. it takes water out of food, or indeed it takes moisture kind of out of your mouth, it means that you taste the food that you're eating much quicker. And therefore things taste of more when you add salt to them. So if you eat a chip without any salt on, you can taste that it tastes a bit like a chip. You put a bit of salt on there, it's going to taste more like a chip. In a moment, I'm going to put some salt on some eggs, and when I do that, ultimately, the taste experience is that you will be able to taste those eggs more than you would be able to if there was no salt on them.